There's three major areas where people get stuck in their healing journey. The first one is gut health. The second one is stress. And the third one is sleep. And so gut health is not just, you know, digestion, gas, and bloating. It's, do you eat real food? Do you only eat things that actually help your body to heal and repair? And all that entails. Stress. Stress is not just, living in the 21st century in the United States. It's, do you have, big T trauma, little T trauma, physical, emotional abuse in the past, or the little T trauma can be having a kid with special needs and dealing with the stress of that for 5 years straight. Could be going through a pandemic and not having certainty of, what's going to happen to you for a lot of youth in our country. Like all that stress entails. And then sleep is really when your body does all its healing. It's when your brain takes the trash out. It's when you actually bump up your hormones for the next day. A lot of people talk about hormone health, right? But if you're not sleeping really well, all that stuff doesn't reset.
Welcome to the Mindset Game podcast. I'm Verit Kogan, and I'm so grateful to introduce you to Dr. Aaron Hartman today. Aaron's journey with functional medicine started when he and his wife adopted their first daughter from foster care. She has cerebral palsy and countless dietary issues. They went from specialist to specialist, and even as a physician, he felt let down and confused. His daughter's health struggles forced him to confront an uncomfortable realization. Our current healthcare system does not have all the answers. His wife, however, refused to give up hope. She ultimately pointed him to functional medicine. His daughter and their other two kids began to thrive, and after years in family practice, he felt called to make a dramatic shift. He now helps patients identify leverage points in key areas of their lifestyle and health that harness their body's remarkable power to heal and begin living the vibrant life that they deserve. And he's going to share some of those with us today. Aaron has become the go-to doctor for difficult and hard cases in Central Virginia. As a clinical researcher, Aaron has been involved with over 70 clinical studies. He is the founder of the Virginia Research Center and is currently serving as an assistant clinical professor of family medicine at the VCU School of Medicine. And in 2016, he founded Richmond Integrative and Functional Medicine. Now, I met Aaron through a group that we're both members of called Genius Network, and I got to hear an incredible talk and invited Aaron to be with us today because I got so many helpful nuggets from that talk and, of course, from my conversations with Aaron. And Aaron, it is such an honor to have you here with us today. Thank you.
It's great to be here. I'm super excited about our conversation and how things turn out. So,
well, I want to start out with maybe just a little bit more about your story before we dive into the triangle of health. So, in the bio, we mentioned your children. Tell us a little bit more about what you've learned through the journey of raising children with these special needs.
I think, one of the biggest things, well, two big take homes are one, that the specialists actually don't always have the answers. And two, you have to, in many ways, become the expert for your own kid with special needs. That's a common theme in this community. And it's like the more involved the kid is, the more you have to become your own expert. And so part of our story was when we had our daughter, because of her cerebral palsy and the drug exposure she had, she was exposed to crystal meth throughout her entire pregnancy. She just was like in this coma state for the first 6 months of her life and had feeding issues. And so the GI doctor, when she was about 12 to 14 months old, said, look, she's small. She's less than the second percentile. We're going to we do what we do for all the kids, standard of care. This is standard of care. We're going to put a feeding tube in her stomach so you can pour sugar water called formula into her stomach and put some meat on her bones. And my wife, who's an occupational therapist, was like, well, that will affect speech development. That'll affect walking and crawling. That'll affect so many downstream things that, and even though she was never supposed to walk or talk or crawl or those things, we just didn't accept that, and we didn't like that option. We didn't mind working to feed her. We didn't mind spending an hour trying to get her food in her stomach. So we opted out of that. And the first aha moment, so to speak, was when was two aha moments. The first one was when the GI doctor didn't accept that and reported us to Child Protective Services for child neglect, abuse, a type of abuse called child neglect. So we got investigated by Child Protective Services just for wanting to do what's best for our daughter because the specialist didn't think it was best. And the funny thing was, my wife worked in the system, so the nurse that came out to investigate us, they were friends. They talked and chatted. One of the interesting things they talked about was how this GI doctor actually liked to put lots of tubes in these kids. So like that was their thing. They're specialists. They do procedures. They like to do procedures to kids. That's just their jam, so to speak. So that was kind of like interesting. Like the system doesn't want you to like go off the road, and when you do, they tend to not react well. That was like the first. I think we learned that really a lot during 2020 to 2022, and I'll leave it at that. Anyway, the second thing was 6 months later, my wife actually found a growth chart for kids with special needs for cerebral palsy, specifically, and my daughter was 50th percentile. She was normal actually for a kid with her condition. Specialists had no idea. Either I want to assume the best. I want to assume they didn't know this growth chart existed because if they did, then that actually means they had um malintent, which I'm going to choose not to believe that. But so the point was the specialists did not know about this. And so that, the second aha moment was, well, one, they don't like you going off the beaten path, and two, they don't always know everything. And so that kind of started us off the beaten path. I like to say an inch at Cape Canaveral is a mile at the moon. You start getting off the path and you get further and further and further. After a couple of years, you look back and you're like, I'm all alone by myself. And that's literally what happened to us. We had to figure out, you know, how to work on my daughter's, not just her walking, but her speech, cognition, her vision. I mean, every aspect of a kid's development, because all of her aspects of development were messed up. And so that forced me to become an expert with all these things with her. And there was no one to turn to. So I had to literally become my own expert for her, research it, reach out to other doctors and professionals and experts. And that changed my entire career. So now I actually do that with patients. But it all started, back in 2006, 2007, when Anna came into our home.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think that it's important for our listeners uh, to understand the journey and the choice that we have to advocate for our own health over the health of our loved ones, not to necessarily accept what is being given to us, even by individuals wearing a lab coat, or physicians or whatnot. So tell us a little bit about this triangle of health. What are the key foundations of good health that you believe every one of our listeners needs to understand and practice?
Yeah, so I've seen tens of that. Actually, I've actually counted one time. I've had over 100,000 patient encounters in my career. And so one of the things that's happened when you see that many people is you start to see like where people's healing gets stuck. And so from 2012 to now, when I started focusing more on how your body actually functions and work, I started to realize there's three major areas where people get stuck in their healing journey. The first one is gut health. The second one is stress. And the third one is sleep. And so gut health is not just, you know, digestion, gas, and bloating. It's, do you eat real food? Do you only eat things that actually help your body to heal and repair? And all that that entails. Stress. Stress is not just, living in the 21st century in the United States. It's, do you have, big T trauma, little T trauma, physical, sexual, emotional abuse in the past, or the little T trauma can be having a kid with special needs and dealing with the stress of that for 5 years straight. Could be going through a pandemic and not having certainty of, what's going to happen to you for a lot of youth in our country. Like all that stress entails. And then sleep is really when your body does all its healing. It's when your brain takes the trash out. It's when you actually bump up your hormones for the next day. A lot of people talk about hormone health, right? But if you're not sleeping really well, all that stuff doesn't reset. And so I've realized that these are the three key areas when people they get stuck, what these more often than not were actually the people's sticking points. So I kind of named it the triangle of health because it's those three key parts where people tend to get stuck in their healing crisis. And it just kind of came out of my clinical experience of seeing, many, many people and realizing this is actually a big thing with people. Let's simplify as easy as possible and put it out there in a way that people can actually then apply it themselves. And that's kind of where that came from.
And I appreciate the connection between stress and trauma. Many people, of course, these days experience stress, in their daily life. And oftentimes we may not really think about some of our past experiences and what might be considered a traumatic experience. So before we dive into that, I do wonder if you can please share with us maybe just your like best tips for gut health and for sleep, that people can, again, kind of
Yeah.
utilize right away to feel better.
The best tip for gut health is just to eat real food. 80% of chronic illness in our country currently today can be directly attributing to eating processed foods. 80% of what Americans eat is processed, and 60% is ultra processed. So the vast majority of what we're eating is actually not even real food. And so for the gut health, I just say focus on only put things in your body that are real, that will heal you, that will help your body to heal. And so it sounds really basic and simple, but like my talk, you're referring to is like you take something like meat or fats or anything in our food system and realizing what real means, all of a sudden it can become a little convoluted. But the basic just there for your gut health is just eat real food. Start there. And I have resources on my website that actually called the Real Food Diaries actually that walk people through how to figure out what real bread, real meat, real dairy, real cheese, like what these things are, real fats. And that's a resource that is available on my website. As far as sleep is concerned, the biggest thing I see with people is they're just not in bed enough. So many people are like, I don't have time, I got kids, I got a business, I'm getting to bed late at night. It's like, if you're getting less than 7 hours of sleep at night, that's associated with an increased risk for cancer, heart disease, dementia, metabolic syndrome, which is all the rage these days. You know, um, you don't make really good quality energy, your cells don't work well. Like if you get less than 7 hours of sleep at night, that's affecting all those things. So the first thing I tell people is you got to be in bed long enough. And then are you waking up refreshed? Are you waking up feeling ready for the day? And if you're not, then your quality of your sleep, it's the time, it's the sleep efficiency. When you do there, do you feel well? And then awakenings, are you waking up a lot? So I kind of focus on the time first, then the quality, then the awakenings. And there's a lot of things you can do, environmentally speaking, whether it's dark shades that block out the light that comes in your room, making sure there's no Wi-Fi or technology. People don't realize looking at your screen, looking at phones, looking at TV within 2 hours of sleep wires your brain for awakeness, not rest. So there's a lot of little small things like that. But the biggest thing I find is just people aren't actually in bed for 7 to 8 hours a night. You're not going to get 8 hours of sleep at night if you're not in bed for at least 8 hours. So
Yeah. Thank you. And then that connects us to stress because oftentimes the reason why people are not going to bed early enough is just either because there's a lot to do or they're so stressed out that they, watch TV or they do whatever in the evening. And then that, kind of creeps into the amount of sleep that they get. So tell us a little bit more about stress. Like, what are you seeing in terms of the effect that stress has on our health?
well, stress is worse for your health than smoking. There's actually interesting data on these populations. Is one actually in a Polynesian culture in the Pacific, who 80% of the population smokes, but they eat real food, they have close familiar environments, and they have no increased risk for heart disease and cancer. And so the thing about it is these basic things are actually more powerful than like are so strong they can actually overcome how bad smoking is for you, right? So with stress, there's different kinds of stressors. There's environmental stressors, which are toxins and chemicals in our environment, which is a whole different conversation as well. Then there's what I refer to as the big T and big S and little S stress. The big S is, I'm sorry, big T, little T, comes in like trauma stuff. And so there's like the daily stressor of just people living their life, but there's also these ideas of trauma. And I think that's coming more to the forefront now. People are more willing to talk about it and they realize, hey, yeah, physical, sexual, emotional abuse. I get those are things, but there's also the little T trauma that I refer to, which is the small drop of dealing with like your own health issue. In my world, with people with chronic health issues, whether it's chronic fatigue, fibro, mold-related illness, chronic Lyme disease, the actual disease itself is a stress to your body. If you've been dealing with a health crisis for years, it actually creates the same brainwave activity and the same genetic expression in your brain as if you were physically, sexually, and emotionally abused. And there's actually brainwave analysis that can be done, whether it's SPECT scanning or even this thing called a neuroquant, where they actually look at your brain. It's a specialized MRI, and you can actually see people's brain, their amygdala, their hippocampus, different parts of the brain take on actually change shape and size. Same with someone who has PTSD. So people don't, you need to realize that these things actually change not just how your brain works and functions and wire, they actually change the size of things like your amygdala, your hippocampus, and different parts of your brain. And so it's a big deal. And so, I tell people first, look at yourself, do you have a history of trauma? Then is there a stressor in your environment? And I think these days we all have stress of some sort. It's how do you deal with it at the end of every day? You end your day feeling good. You get a good night's rest. You wake up ready for the day. And if you're not, there's something blocking your body getting ready. That's affecting your healing every night, which over time can lead to a health crisis or keep you stuck in a health crisis if you're in one.
So, what can we do? Because the reality is, probably most people listening are experiencing some version of stress, be it in the relationship part of their life, financial, kids, work. What can we do?
The first thing I think is you have to recognize that it's a thing and that you're dealing with it. So many people I talk to on a daily basis discount it. They minimize it. It's like, oh, everybody deals with this. It's not a big deal. Or, yeah, and it's like you can't do that. You have to recognize it's a thing. And I think just recognizing that's the first thing. Like my example is me with, bullying. I was a kid in elementary school that no one liked it. Everybody picked on. And I just thought that was normal, right? And then all this bullying stuff, popped up like, wait, so well, I guess that kind of was me a little bit. And it's interesting how it rewired my brain when I was in elementary school to be very forward thinking, which kind of had its advantages. But its disadvantages was I don't really make really close. It's hard for me to make connections with people because I'm always thinking about the future. And in order to connect with people, you have to be present, right? And so it's interesting how these things that we ignore, that we minimize, can be a big deal. And so I think recognizing that and then on a daily basis, what are you doing to help your body cope with that? And that can be anything as simple as breath work, meditation, having your own kind of reflective practice, journaling. So it's interesting how many people the physical activity, art. I actually had one patient who she ran like 6 or 7 miles a day, and that was her working on. She had some trauma in her past, and when she hurt her ankle and couldn't run out anymore, all of a sudden, emotionally, she couldn't deal with the stuff that she had kind of been suppressing. So really, I think acknowledging what's going on, and working on healing, just like you eat the right kind of food every day, you try to breathe clean air, you try to get a good night's rest. You need to really work on your body. You need to develop resilience so when something does happen, because it will, you have the reserves to actually deal with it.
So, what are the kind of biggest causes of the chronic disease, and what are the symptoms that people are coming with that you're seeing most often?
Well, I'd say probably the biggest causes there's an internal and external. The biggest internal cause is actually the food people put in their body. They're not actually putting stuff in their body to allow it to heal itself. If you're putting chicken nuggets and fried French fries and seed rolls, and that's what you put in your body, it won't. It's actually that won't not only harm you, but you won't be able to heal. So that's like the stuff you put inside your body. Then there's the external environment. There's over 80,000 chemicals that are currently being manufactured in our company that have not been evaluated for safety or not. And so there's so many chemicals in our environment, whether it's plastics, phthalates, benzenes, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, like all these. I can say lots of fancy words, but the idea is like there's a lot of chemicals in our environment. So having, detoxification, clean water, clean food, clean air, clean environment, clean relationships. And so those are things we can all do to actually help our body heal, repair, and be strong. So what you put in your body, real food, and then your environment. Is your house clean? You have mold in your house, it's there's actually I on my website. I'm not trying to plug my website, but I did a thing on Harvard School of Public Health. Okay, they're legit, right? Did a healthy homes building. And so I took that and did like a little mini course that's a bit free available to people that walks them through how do you look at your house to see if your house is a safe, clean place to be in. The third biggest source for PAH, which is polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, is carpet in your house. Number one is smoking. Number two is burning incense. Number three is carpet. Yes, yeah, right. So people burn incense. They put little plugins in their house. They have carpet. That's just as bad as if you smoke indoors. I mean, it's right beneath smoking indoors. So something as basic as not having carpet and not having plugins in your house, and burning incense in your house can have a massive impact on your health. So again, the environmental you're in, what's around you, and what you put within, and what you choose to put within you. Um, those are two big things I think make a massive impact on people's health. And they don't realize that the air quality increases the risk for heart disease, lung issues, dementia. There's great data on the air quality, particularly this thing called PM 2.5, which is black carbon. I don't want to get too much in detail, but black carbon is one of the things that actually from diesel. If you're in an area that has a lot of that stuff, you actually have an increased risk for developing heart disease, strokes, and dementia. Something super basic, just breathing clean air can have a massive impact on your health. again, the environment, and then your house, your home, the school, your workplace. I see so many kids with issues with ADD, even things like panis, pans, and autism, that their environment, the schools are moldy. The schools are not clean places, and that actually causes brain inflammation on these kids. Um, so it sounds really simple and trite. Oh, a clean environment. When you start digging in it, I've yet to see a kid in my clinic going to a school that doesn't have some kind of mold in it. Big issue. How many people have carpet in their house? How many people have crawl spaces in their homes, which 30% of all the air in your home comes from your crawl space. So if you have a crawl space in your home, would you actually sleep in your crawl space every night? What's it look like down there? You have to realize 30% of the air in your house is actually coming up through that. So again, environment, clean environment, which have resources for that, and then food, what you put in your body. Those are, if there's two takeaways from this, it'd be clean environment, clean food. We've got resources for that. If you do that, that can have a massive, massive, massive impact on your body's ability to self-heal, self-repair. Um, yeah, and those are things that I see that people come to me sick for chronic Lyme or chronic mold, or they've got an autoimmune issue or rheumatoid or Hashimoto's or whatever it is, IBS, and you kind of get into it. And it's like their environment, what they put in them and around them is actually the big triggers for their health issues.
Thank you. So can you give us a few more kind of specifics around, because I'm very curious now around kind of clean environment, because now I wonder if my, cleaning supplies are good enough, or, like there's so much stuff I'm thinking chemically that, we have around the house. So what are some things that we need to avoid?
Yeah, I'd recommend you go look at my clean home and God, because I actually walked through this. Harvard, this is so important. The Harvard School of Public Health actually made a guide that actually addresses this. This is how important it is. So it's not me making it up. It's me just taking Harvard's guide and walking people through it. But you said it, cleaning supplies. Like, what do you clean your house with? I mean, these chemicals like chlorine is a neurotoxin. Chlorine gas was actually used during World War One. Chlorine gas was actually created as a neurotoxin. It's a great, great, great disinfectant, but if you smell it, it actually is a neurotoxin. You probably don't want to be breathing that. A lot of these solvents and chemicals, a lot of these things, these cleaners actually are solvents. They're actually petroleum distillates. And these petroleum distillates actually will dissolve your membranes in your gut or your lungs when you breathe it or swallow it. So all of a sudden, what are you using to clean your home with? What's under your sink? What's in your bathroom? Think about it. Your bathroom's right off of your bedroom. Your sink is in your main spot. And then your garage, people don't realize if you have an attached garage, what's in your garage? Every time you open your front door of your house, you actually, at least in the summertime where I'm at, what happens is you have air coming into your home because the attic heats and you create this like negative pressure thing. And what happens is you actually pull air from your garage into your home. So what's in your garage? Do you have gasoline, kerosene, paint thinners? Like what's in your garage? Cleaning stuff. People think, oh, I get out of my house, it's in my garage. If it's attached, it's coming in. And these are things people just don't think about on a routine basis, how this is affecting your health. So that's a great, great point. It's a general rule of thumb, you shouldn't put anything on your body that you wouldn't put in your body. So if these cleaning things are not things you put on your skin or swallow, probably shouldn't be cleaning with them. And that sounds kind of silly and ridiculous, but it's so true. The best things to kill viruses, to kill bacteria, to kill HIV, to soap. Soap is super basic, using basic things like vinegar, rubbing it in alcohol. Vinegar is an amazing cleaner. It's acetic acid. It kills all kinds of stuff. And you can use basic cleaning things, put some essential, make your own homemade thing or buy. There's some things like seventh generation that make some really good quality products, but that's a big thing. I'm sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but the clean products in your home, ultimately you're being exposed to those. And if they're not clean products, you're getting exposed to low grade chemicals. One of my patients, actually his job, this is, a couple of years ago, was he actually sold the cleaning supplies to schools. The schools used to clean. And I was actually talking to him during the pandemic when everybody was like spraying everything and using hand sanitizer and stuff. And he was concerned because he's like, I'm selling this like mad to all these schools that are every night they're double dousing, triple dousing stuff. Now these kids are getting exposed to this stuff the next day. He's like, I don't know what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years from now for the kids because they're just getting exposed even more than usual. And so it's a big deal.
Thank you for raising awareness about this. I can certainly say personally, I was not aware of much of what you said. So let's now go to back to clean food, if you don't mind. So, yes, eating real food, what again should we avoid? What should we do more of?
So I could talk about that for hours and hours. There's the one thing I make a big that's probably worse for your health than sugar and things like it are actually fake fats or processed fats. Every cell in your body is made of some kind of fat. And if you look at in our industrialized food system, we use seed oils that are superheated that makes them rancid. We use a solvent extracted, canola oil. People don't realize canola oil stands for Canadian oil, right? It's actually rapeseed oil. In the late 1800s, it was actually used as an engine oil. Okay, but rapeseed oil doesn't sound too yummy, right? So canola oil, Canadian oil. Well, it's solvent extracted. They use hexane or different solvents to extract that, and then the stuff smells horrible, so you have to deodorize it. Okay, so they'll use other solvents to deodorize it to get the smell out, and now you put that on food and put it in your body. So just eating real fat, using real quality fats. That's like the grass-fed, grass-finished ghee, butter, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, not using processed oils. And it's amazing how many things you buy have soy oil in them, canola oil, and even sunflower oil. Sunflower oil is kind of tricky because sunflowers are healthy. It's got a lot of omega-3s, but the way they actually process to get the oil out, they expeller press it. And actually, you can actually go on YouTube and watch pictures of expeller pressed oil being expressed, and you see the oil burning, giving off smoke. So they're literally semi-cooking the oil, which if you know about omega-3s, you should never cook them, right? And so all of a sudden now you're taking something healthy and turning it into something unhealthy. So just paying attention to that, only putting real fats, real oil in your body, that by itself can have a massive, massive positive impact on your health. And these fats, these dysfunctional fats are associated with diseases ranging from diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, the cognitive decline, dementia, and even cancers like breast, colon, prostate, pancreatic cancer, a whole host of cancers related to consuming these dysfunctional fats. And that's just one example of real food in our food system.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to kind of shift attention here for a moment to the power of our mind and our thoughts. And I know that's of course
Yeah.
related to stress and our, perception of stress and so on. Like, what are you seeing in terms of people's belief systems as they come in, like their beliefs about their ability to heal from, let's say, chronic disease or whatever ailment they're having, or to prevent those things? How important are our beliefs?
That's huge because many people's belief is that they're going to go to an expert and an expert's going to fix them. They're going to go to the doctor, get a pill, get a surgery, and they'll be fixed. And they're starting from the wrong basis. Like, I don't have the power to heal you. Like, your body actually has the ability to self-heal and self-repair. If you can just identify what's blocking your body's ability to self-heal and self-repair, find those roadblocks, find what your body's lacking, and address those, your body actually will do what it's made to do. It will self-heal and self-repair. You break a bone when you're young, it heals really fast. You cut yourself, it heals up, right? You get sick, your body heals. And so I think people just enter the office with the wrong perspective. Like, I'm coming alongside to help you help your body do what it was made to do, right? And that by itself is a huge paradigm shift. Like in the functional medicine world, that's a very in naturopathic medicine, they've been talking about that since the 1920s. Like, we're just coming along and helping your body do what's naturally made to do. So I think that's the one belief thing that's really important. You have to be an active participant in your health. You know, um, the second thing is I have a lot of people come see me who, because I'm like the fifth and sixth and seventh person they've seen, it's almost kind of like, I don't say it's desperation, but kind of, and like, so when they come to me, I'm like, I lay out this table. These are all the things going on. Let's work through it. There's almost like this disbelief, like, well, how come no one else mentioned how important food was? How come no one else mentioned that, living, we were at a conference in Austin, for the World AI Conference, and the air felt kind of funny to me there. So I started researching. I realized the air quality in Austin's horrible. When we were there, the PM 2.5 was measuring in 18 to 20 level, which doesn't mean a lot to people, but basically it's over 10. It's associated with all those bad things I mentioned. And so all of a sudden, like, you know, something like that is going to have a big impact on your health. And so I feel like people don't, when you start talking about these things, they're like, well, how come no other doctors have mentioned air quality in house and carpet and et cetera? And I kind of remind people, well, back in the 1960s, I would have told you to smoke because I smoked Lucky Strikes, right?
Mm.
That was they're actually advertisements when you say my doctor smokes, Camels or whatever. And I mean, it's crazy, but you can't make this stuff up. And so it's one of those things where, you know, just because you've never heard it before, and that's where people being active participants in their health. It's like because they're learning things from you. So, one, um, the beliefs like your body, I'm coming alongside to help you. And two, the reality that there's a lot of things in our environment that impact our health. And I feel like those two together, like they block people's, it's a journey. And so when you start the journey, there's things you have to walk through. And it takes time. And so the longer it takes for people to like walk through those, you know, bad belief systems or different things, it just takes longer for them to get to the point. Like it's sometimes it takes me 2 or 3 years just to get people to like clean their food up. I have patients with mold related illness called CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which is very, 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 very common. And it takes them a couple of years before they even decide to get their house checked for mold, right? And it's amazing because people are coming from around the state, around the East Coast, around the country to come see me. They're paying money to come see me, and then we talk about it. So I feel like that mindset of having of action, that's made us an entrepreneurial mindset. Taking that entrepreneurial mindset from your job and applying it to your health. Be ready for action. If you don't believe it, research it. Figure things out because it's amazing how much of this data is easily accessible to figure things out.
This is such an important conversation because I think that, many people have that mindset, grew up with that mindset of, I'm going to go to the doctor and, or the expert, and they're going to fix me. They're going to tell me what I need. And then when we hear what we need, as you said, then the actual implementation of it consistently, not just for a little bit, but really consistently over the long term is not always there. I remember that research that was done out of Johns Hopkins with the heart disease patients that, they were told by their physicians, people that had bypass surgery, and they were told, hey, you're either going to need to change your lifestyle, like actually apply these recommendations that we have for you, or you're most likely going to need to repeat the surgery, right? Like there's no other option. And I think it was only 10% of them that actually applied the recommendations on a consistent basis, which is just mind-boggling because clearly they were going to see the doctors, they had the surgery, right? Such a risky, pretty
Yeah.
traumatic surgery, and they weren't able to apply it. So what do you think is the real gap there? What do you think is the real issue of them not taking your recommendations?
I mean, I think it's, as I've gotten a little older in my career, I realize a lot of things come down to marketing. I hate to say it like that, but if you're always seeing marketing with healthy foods, whole healthy, milk does a body good, all these advertise all these things, these messaging that you see all the time, then that whether it's true or not, that's actually what propaganda is. If you see something, if it's good, we call it marketing. If it's bad, we call it propaganda. But it's the idea that Facebook, Instagram, all these things on TV where we get one message that's totally different than the reality of what you need to do to be healthy. And so that's where I think, repetition is the mother of all learning. And so that's the reason why we put out you know, so many articles and so much stuff to educate people. I've done like almost 300 blogs at this stage on our website that people can access. But you have to like really dive into it. And the more you see, the more you hear it, it took me a year and a half to figure out how to source the food to my house, right? It took my wife telling me, I mean, it wasn't that long. I mean, it was 2010. I was still going in my yard, putting pre-emergent out there and pesticides in my yard and getting dosed with these chemicals twice a year to make my yard green. Um, and my wife told me, don't do that. And I was like, hey, whatever, what are you talking about? You're not the doctor, I'm the doctor. And it took me a while to realize, holy moly, I was literally poisoning myself. And so it just takes time. And so that's where people need to find good sources of information, read good books and educate themselves from good sources, from reputable places, by educating themselves. Because the only time this is where it's hard as a doctor, if the only time you educate yourself is when I have you for 30, 45 minutes, or when I do my 2 hour intake in my office. If that's only a time I have access to you, if the intervening 12 weeks you have all this other exposure, it's going to take a long time for you to get buy-in, a really long time.
And I think that's the essence of this conversation is really for us to embrace the mindset that we do have ownership over our health and that there are resources now. That's one of the great gifts of the internet
Yes.
and people like you that put out all this research, is that we can access it, right there at the tips of our fingertips, and we can find out for ourselves, and that takes time and that takes effort, of course, and a commitment, and of course
Yeah.
to apply whatever it is that we read. And so I'm really grateful to you, Erin, because I think that a lot of people are struggling with their health, and they may attribute, their health or their stress or, depleted energy level to kind of surface level things, when really it's oftentimes the hidden stuff, like you said, like a lot of the things that you mentioned today that we might just not be conscious of, that if we change could have dramatic impacts on our well-being. And I invite people to check out your website, your blog, your videos, your resources. Where can they access all of that?
The easiest way to access is just richmondfunctionalmedicine.com is my website for my practice. And it's richmondfunctionalmedicine.com is the website. Yeah. Or if you just Google my name, Aaron Hartman, MD, functional medicine, it pops right up there. Website's kind of like a do-it-yourselfer trove. So we've got a book reading list. I've currently got over 70 books on my reading list that I've personally read and vetted for, hey, this is a vetted book reading list. We've got, all these blogs. So we've actually started a YouTube channel as well that we're right now talking about mold on our YouTube channel. We started that conversation this week. So just getting that information out to people so they can educate themselves. Um, and so I just recommend people go there, snoop around what finds information. I'm always surprised about stuff I look back and I'm like, wow, I forgot I talked about that 3 years ago. You forget what you put out there. So
Well, I'm so grateful for your time and for all the amazing tips that you shared with us today, because we can take charge of our health, and it's all there for us if we choose to do that, and to focus on feeling good, because we all deserve to feel good. So thank you for all that you do, and please continue to do and share that information. It's important.
well, thanks a lot, Bear, for inviting me. I enjoyed our time talking about these things.
Thank you.
Hi, game changers. It's Vered. I hope you loved this episode with Dr. Aaron Hartman and that you got some amazing tips to help you with that triangle of health: your gut health, sleep, and of course, releasing stress. And that you better understand how your mindsets, how your beliefs impact your health and your ability to heal from chronic disease and other ailments. So check out our other episodes related to health. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I wish you an amazing day. Bye.